What was the last time you were so happy that you cried about? My biopsy came results as benign yesterday. So I cried tears of extreme joy. Last time I can remember was in August. I had just finalized the new mortgage on my house after splitting from my abusive ex, so things were tight, full payment versus half. I got a call from my boss the week before the first payment came out. He asked if I was sitting and told me I was being promoted with no additional responsibilities and had a 30% raise he had to get approval from the president of our 8,000 employee business unit to get, and I was one of only a handful of people who got raises this year. I don't know why he fought so hard for me as I was being paid well to begin with. As an added bonus, the raise was retroactive several months, so he told me to expect a large check the next week. I started crying and told him a bit about my personal situation, left out the abuse part, and said it couldn't have come at a better time. It's funny how things work sometimes. That was the last thing I expected, and I was sure I was getting a call to say I was fired. I hadn't been performing my best at work due to the separation and had even taken a few months off work at the beginning of the year to recover from the trauma. I still have no idea what I did to deserve the raise. My boss and I have only worked together since February, but I've seen time and time again that he fights hard for his team and seems like a really solid guy. I've never felt so respected and appreciated in the workplace in my 15 years with the same company. I totally teared up after writing this lol. A few years ago my dog was so sick the vets thought she was dying. She was only 7, I was beyond devastated. Every test they gave her was inconclusive. In the end, it turned out to be the most benign of causes, and she pulled through with 0 issues. When we went in for an ultrasound recheck, and the mass was gone, I cried. My boyfriend proposed on August 8 and I knew it was coming. I picked out my own ring. But the day of I was clueless and could not stop crying during the whole proposal. I had a major work stressor and was crying cause I thought I was going to be fired while walking around this park thing with my mom. Then I see my fiancé standing off by the trees and realize what is happening and started bawling happy tears. He surprised me and it was so pretty. I just adore my fiancé so much. It was a lot of emotions that day though. I was telling my puppy how much I missed my first dog and that I hope puppy benefits from all the lessons he taught me about being a good dog owner. Puppy then snuggled up and gave me kisses. Cue waterworks. About 2 years ago I did a solo trip to Rotterdam for 4 days. I didn't know anything about the city and ended up in a park with this big A** tower. I went closer and found out it was the Euromast and that you could see the city from up there. Up there I went. When I came out the door onto the platform, I really had to collect myself before stepping out. It wasn't the most beautiful thing I had ever seen, or ever will see. But the fact that I somehow ended up there, with no knowledge whatsoever, with no help from anybody, only I did it for me by myself. It made me realize, and really understand, that you are the only one responsible for your happiness and that it's not even that hard. You just have to do what feels right and everything else will just fall into place. Smiley face. My neighbor's lost kitten came home. My BF sat me down for a talk and told me he loved me and wanted a future with me. I was so happy I cried. A couple of months later and he suddenly started actively ignoring me. Almost 10 days ago when I found out that my daughter is perfectly healthy in the womb and I no longer need ultrasounds at the hospital meant for higher risk patients. Last Monday. It's been 2 years since I graduated and I've been working **** retail jobs to get by. My life felt like it was at a standstill. Last Monday I got my dream job and cried my eyes out when I left the building and they told me I got the job. I was watching this video as a part of my lecture and it was so wholesome that I cried with tears of joy. https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=Zaudu7pxm. It's about robotic limbs being used to help people who are fully paralyzed and can't communicate to be able to do some things independently by using mind control. The brain is connected up with wires and chip and this reads the brain waves of the individual allowing them to command the robotic arm. In this video a woman who hasn't been able to feed herself since she was paralyzed is able to use the robotic arm, controlled by her brain waves, to pick up a cup of coffee, bring it to her mouth and sip from it. Her face afterwards as well made me cry even more because of how happy she looked. In July the medication which will allow my nephew to live a long and mostly healthy life was approved for use in the UK, and had pricing agreed. He'll get it when he turns 12. My favorite cousin is a **** man. When he told me that he and his fiancée are expecting a baby, I burst out crying. The baby is absolutely gorgeous and he lights up my world. This isn't as serious as some of the comments on here, but my parents saved and saved to get me a MacBook Air for my birthday so that I could have the same advantage as other kids in uni. I burst out crying and smiling in gratitude because I know how expensive they are. For me, as was the day I found officially I was pregnant after trying actively for 6.5 years and being on fertility treatments for 3 years and 1 month after being told by a doctor that I wasn't even ovulating after 3 years of meds and he didn't have any hope it would happen. I didn't believe it until my husband checked and started laughing in disbelief. He finally shook me a bit to get my attention and confirmed it was finally positive. I had seen negative tests every month for 6 years. I burst out sobbing, but I swear it was relief and happiness. Now I'm crying thinking about how happy it all was. I lucked out with a normal, uncomplicated pregnancy and a picture-perfect delivery. When my kid became my roommate, graduated HS, so started paying a very small amount of rent. They sat me down about a year later and said they weren't paying enough. They're now paying market rate from $150 to $1,000 for half a house, so deal with it. My baby became a responsible adult. I was so proud I cried. It hasn't happened to me yet, but sometimes I cry from happiness when daydreaming. Does it count? When my husband spoke to me for the first time after his esophageal cancer paralyzed his vocal cords, also requiring a tracheotomy. Around August 2019. I'd taken to sitting in our garden in the late afternoons for some decompression alone time while he napped. That day, he came out and sat beside me and said, "Hey." I nearly fell out of my chair. And was so happy I cried. He told me he'd been practicing for a couple of days to make sure it would work. One chord works again and the track has been reversed, thankfully. Still working on the cancer part. Last month, after many months of unemployment, I got a job offer. I then checked my bank account to see if I could financially last the 30 days it would take to get hired and get my first paycheck. Up till then I had not received the unemployment benefits I had qualified for 6 months prior. Lo and behold, a catch-up deposit was in my account from unemployment. Between the job and the money, I sobbed out loud for a good 10 minutes in front of my mom. This is a fairly common occurrence, but this morning it just got to me. My 1-year-old son just spontaneously walking up to his 5-year-old sister and just planting a big kiss on her. Then my 5-year-old just melting into the sweetest smile over it. I guess when I realized that in June I almost took my own life and now I'm in school about to become a help desk tech, losing weight and back in control of my life. It was an absolutely random moment that I started to think how lucky I am to have a loving and supportive family, and then just broke down in tears. This is going to sound so lame. But I was having a bad day a while ago, and when I came home my BF, who didn't know I was having a bad day, had bought me a churro after work and brought it home. Churros are my absolute favorite, and my baby started crying LMAO. My BF was like, it's a only churro. All confused. My autistic son hugged his grandpa last week. He's not adverse to being touched, but I have never known him to initiate contact with anyone other than me and my husband. The look on FIL's face was enough for me to turn on the waterworks.